Hello, and welcome to the I've Seen Everything Reaction Wrap-Up podcast. Here is where I share my thoughts, reactions, and review for my latest reaction videos. To find these full reaction videos, please search for @SeenEverything over on YouTube, or check the description of this podcast for more information. Also, please remember to rate and comment on this episode, and follow the podcast so you can see when I'm putting out new wrap-ups. And now, on to my latest wrap-up for Project Hail Mary. It was just such an unexpectedly good movie. You know what I mean? Not to say that there would be any reason to think it wouldn't be good, but just I had no idea what it was going into it. And it could have been, halfway good movie, still decent watch, still decent enough to go see. It was just a great movie. It just really was. There's just so much that they did so well in here. I know they took some diversions from the book, even in the character design for Grace. Apparently Grace in the book was older, so there were fans of the book that were hesitant when they heard that Ryan Gosling was cast in this role. But from what I've heard, pretty much everybody thought he did an amazing job. But they just sell so many different important parts of this story so well. One of the things I mentioned about Grace staying on Arid long term, again, they have all the Iridian scientists, or at least a fair amount of them, that are dedicated to making sure Grace sustaining this habitat they've built for him, basically, and all this stuff that he needs. I wondered about like food, clothing, especially food, like produce stuff that he can continue to exist, and hopefully on the food front have it not be a horrible experience. I guess they could have taken what food he had left on the ship and analyze it and figure out ways to create new food for him so that they could feed him in perpetuity. Yeah, a lot of logistical things to figure out for sure. A lot of logistical things to figure out even if he went home. He's on Arid. Rocky was already far from home and Grace was far from home. Arid could be even further away from Earth than Tal Ceti, where they ended up trying to figure out how to, save their planets. So you could have Grace on the Hail Mary headed home for decades, for all we know. So it's not a small decision to make. I don't know if they could put him in some kind of cryostasis. If he was on there for too long, by the time he got home, he could have just died from old age by then. All kinds of things to figure. I said it during the reaction, and I still think it's incredibly important. I think it's so important the way they structured this story, the way Andy Weir structured this story, and the way they did in the movie, in that it's not the Ryan Gosling movie, the Ryland Grace movie, and Rocky is just this kind of quirky alien sidekick that he acquires along the way. Rocky made real contributions. They had a real friendship where they relied on each other, they supported each other, they cared about each other. Grace did things that legitimately helped and even saved Rocky and his planet and his people. And Rocky did the very same for Grace. Saved his life. Was very, very smart. Came up with things that Grace couldn't come up with on his own, but also quite literally saved his life at different points. Each of them could not have accomplished what they did without the other. Gave Grace hope that he wasn't just going to die out in space, that he would give him means by which to get home, at least at that point in the movie. They were both made infinitely better by the other's presence and by the other's involvement in their part of the mission and in their life. And neither would have been able to accomplish what they did without the other. And their friendship was just something that was very beautiful. Everyone deserves a lot of credit. Andy Weir deserves credit. Ryan Gosling deserves credit. The other actors and the director of this. The puppeteer for Rocky and voice for Rocky deserves a ton of credit too, because that performance is what breathes life into that character. James Ortiz as Rocky, it says. He was the puppeteer for Rocky, and from what I understood, there were multiple puppeteers for Rocky, but he was one of them. He was providing the voice that Ryan Gosling was acting against during the scenes, because he was there, and they were going to obviously put in a different voice for Rocky later, but when they did, I think it says that he also provided the voice, with Ortiz also providing the artificial voice assigned to him. Yeah, so when they got to that point, they couldn't think of a better voice than what this person organically provided to Rocky as a voice. So all of the people who puppeted Rocky, but James Ortiz in particular, for providing the voice and being one of the puppeteers, they all deserve an incredible amount of credit for the life they were able to breathe into this very non-human character. More so, again, than I believe would have been possible with computer animation, with CG effects. I think everything has its place. I think there's amazing things that can be accomplished with CG that couldn't be accomplished any other way. But there is still something to live performance capture. That's why I think is one of the wonderful things about performance capture in general, is that it can be a marrying of those two worlds. But this was just straight up, at least for the most part, straight up old school puppetry. And it shows you how important that can still be and how authentic, just the amount of realism that can be brought into a character like this through those means still. That's why you see people advocating when it comes to like Star Wars movies and things like that to not go too hard into the computer effects. It's like, we want practical. We want it to be there. You see it, feel it, for it to look real. And there's only, at least at this point, there's only so much of that you can obtain with computer effects. They're getting better all the time, but there's so much good about this movie, I don't know where to focus. I just feel like everything they did so effectively. It's just an incredibly enjoyable movie on so many fronts. It's a great dramatic movie. It's a disaster movie of a kind, like you're trying to figure out this big problem. There's a good amount of comedy in here. It's a friendship story. It's a good sci-fi movie. There's just so many things that are done well, so many things going for it. Really narrows the window of people who wouldn't enjoy this movie. They got to be out there, I'm sure. There's got to be people out there like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. This wasn't that great. But I loved this movie. If you're here watching this with me, I'm assuming you loved this movie. And that's all I have to say about it. So thank you for being here to watch this with me. I really enjoyed being able to watch it again. I hope you did too. And I will see you on the next video. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to the I've Seen Everything reaction wrap-up. Again, to find these full reaction videos, please search for @SeenEverything over on YouTube or check the description of this podcast for more information. Also, please remember to rate and comment on this episode and follow the podcast so you can see when I'm putting out new wrap-ups. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll meet you here for the next episode.